Thanks for tuning into our podcast. We love having you here, and it's our mission to bring you all the latest and greatest tips, skills, and know-how to make you the best that you can be. We know that you have it in you, and we're going to show you how. Now, let's get started.
Well, hi again, everybody, and welcome back to Anti-Bullying 101. These podcasts are designed to create awareness about the bullying epidemic and provide teachers, administrators, parents, and even students information about the dangers of bullying and why we have to take a comprehensive approach when dealing with the problem. My name is Jim Burns, and I'm your host. I am a retired high school administrator with over 40 years of experience in education. Currently, I'm a college instructor and have designed the Bully-Proof Classroom, a graduate course that provides my students with permanent help, not temporary relief, as they battle the bullying epidemic. Today, we are going to learn why it's so important to teach self-control. And we don't want to drink the Kool Aid when someone tells us that there's something wrong with the kid or we have a medical issue. Self-control is taught. Okay, why is self-control so important? Well, number one, have you taken a good look at society? Number one in 4 homes are in foreclosure. People either eat too much, spend too much, drink too much. They get angry at the drop of a hat. They can't control themselves. They get upset at the smallest things. They don't even like traffic jams. They get crazy when the traffic gets tied up and they're 2 minutes late when they should have left 20 minutes earlier. The idea is that self-control is something, when we look at it, we start to believe that there's something innate about the person that makes him or her not be able to control themselves. Here's my suggestion. Don't drink that Kool Aid. Don't believe that. That may have been a theory or philosophy that was taught years ago. But the bottom line, I know some kids have impulse control, where they have an impulse to do something that they shouldn't do or react in a certain way. But you know what? Even that can be contained with the right consequences. And we have to become more aware of this situation in our schools and in our culture. This is something that we have been sold, once again, maybe by the colleges. But you know, when you see a kid that doesn't have self-control, and I said it yesterday, in the first podcast, this is the second in a series of 10 podcasts, that oftentimes the behavior is learned. They have been taught through parents maybe giving in to temper tantrums, not knowing how to confront, not knowing how to discipline, and before you know it, they come to school and expect many of the same things. And we fancy them as having a self-control issue. Now, we end up giving this kid medication, and we'll talk about the medication issue in a later show. But the bottom line is, medication really tunes up the brain. If the kid has a learned behavior, in other words, his private logic tells him, I get what I want when I react. I get what I want when I throw a tantrum. That behavior's learned. Let's not buy into this, because by buying into it, we're producing adults who don't have self-control. Now, several years ago, I wrote an article, and you can find it on the Bully-Proof Classroom website, and I'm gonna share it with you guys here. And the title of it is Self-Control. There is none better. None in quotation marks, spelled N-U-N. Going to Catholic grammar school for 9 years had its benefits. We had to wear uniforms, so there wasn't any clothes competition. We went to church all the time, so we got some formal spiritual training. I mean, you couldn't even think of using profanity because you thought the nuns were reading your minds and would find out what you were thinking. We learned good penmanship. We were respectful, compliant, and responsible. Now, the crazy thing is, no one gave me a choice in these areas. I was forced to do them. It wasn't like the nun said to me, you can go to church if you like, or why don't you try to hold your pencil this way, or is that the way you speak to someone? If I didn't do it the way I was supposed to do it, there'd be blood on the floor, and lots of times it was mine. Now, don't get me wrong. I am not condoning spanking, hitting, or anything like that. But back in the early 60s, you went to a Catholic school, you didn't want a nun getting their hands on you. As I look back at this experience, the one thing that I realize is this type of education taught me something that no one talks about today, and that's self-control. The majority of the problems that a person faces in their life are related to a lack of self-control. Everybody either eats too much, drinks too much, spends too much, can't control their temper, lusts after things that they can't have, like someone else's spouse, and develops habits that they can't break that could kill them or someone else, like smoking or driving too fast. Are you following the picture here? In other words, no choice, you'd have to do it. It isn't do you feel like doing it. If we waited till we felt like doing things, we'd never do it. And the things that are the hardest for us to do, those are the things that we should do. Once again, we can't take that path of least resistance. And if we believe that kids come into school and they don't have to be taught this, and we think that there's something organically wrong with them because of, their inability to control themselves, we just drank the Kool Aid and we're going to let the kid get away with stuff that he should never get away with. Now, why does this stuff happen? And here it comes. I never remember my parents or any teacher in my life saying to me, the choice is yours. You can smoke or not, or you can lose your temper or not, or you can overeat or not. Nobody ever gave me those choices. I was disciplined when I didn't have self-control. Self-control is taught. And if I did something that exhibited a lack of self-control, I got grabbed by someone and reamed out, or in the worst case scenario, got clobbered. I was taught to wait on line, raise my hand, take my time, practice until I got it right, memorized, and I got drilled on skills that everyone knew were necessary for lifelong success. That's it. I was taught to do these things. And and we live in a culture today that just reeks of lack of patience. Computers too slow, or you're trying to send a text message and it took too long for the person to get it. I mean, it's unbelievable when you think about it. But with kids, if they lack self-control, don't put yourself in a position in thinking that it's organic. It is something that needs to be taught. Don't drink that Kool Aid. The Kool Aid of believing that self-control is an organic problem. Look, musicians practice endless hours to perform a single piece of music. Students study instead of watch TV. Athletes devote years of their life to prepare for an Olympic event that may only last a few minutes. The concept of self-control and delayed gratification and discipline seem to go counter to our cultural values. We use our credit cards because we want things right away. We become impatient if we wait more than a few minutes at the drive-thru at McDonald's. We eat ourselves into obesity and poor health because it feels good with little consideration for the long-term consequence. Now, self-control should be graded in school, and it should be looked at as a quality for success. My parting shot to you is if you or someone you know is having trouble with self-control, I have a good friend named Sister Houlihan who still thinks self-control is important. She's 4 feet 8 inches tall, and she can still make a grown man hold his pencil the right way. It is one of the most important qualities that we can develop in our children. The problem is we get buffaloed into believing that, he can't do it or she can't do it. When they throw the tantrum, we don't know what to do. When they get upset because they get it wrong on a test, they start to react. And we don't know how to control them. This is a quality that, if it's not dealt with, will produce adults who believe, once again, that they can say and do what they want. And once that happens, they then produce children with the same attitude, the same behavior, and the same thoughts about patience and the ability to control themselves. This is another intergenerational problem, and I hate to say it, but we've been drinking this Kool Aid for many years. We've been drinking it for many years, and we have to become more aware of it. We can't put up with it. And we certainly can't put up with some of the philosophies that we now know through our own experiences with kids who have just come into schools and terrorized schools, school shootings, bullying, and all the other things that go on. Because those things are only going to get worse if we don't start teaching self-control like right now. I don't think we have a choice. I think it's something that we need to do, and I think it's something that nobody's going to like it when we do it. And therein lies another problem, because once we get confronted by something that we're trying to impose, we back down. Because we either have a problem with administration, a problem with other teachers possibly, or the big problem is with parents. Because as you discipline their children, what starts to happen? They begin to feel disciplined themselves. So don't tell them that their kids are doing something wrong because you just slapped them on the wrist in the area of their parenting skills. And guess what? They failed. You know why they failed? They didn't have self-control either. This is a gigantic pitcher of Kool Aid. Like that commercial where the Kool Aid is breaking down the wall in a giant pitcher. The Kool Aid is breaking down the school walls in a giant pitcher and pouring glasses of self-control is organic right to everybody in the school building, and we're drinking it. And while we're doing it, the kids are laughing at us because they know themselves that they can get away with just about anything. My name is Jim Burns. You've been listening to Anti-Bullying 101. Go to my website. You can find this article on my website. Self-control, there is none better. You can find that. Take a look at it. Read it. Digest it. As a matter of fact, the article Everybody Knows is on the website as well. Find that. Spread that around the school. See if you can get a few people to raise an eyebrow. We have to disrupt some of the stuff that's going on today that's causing our kids to do poorly in school and creating chaos within our school. The website, www.bullyproofclassroom.com. I am posting in the episode description a course, Everybody Knows. You can go there, click on it, bring you right to the course. and you'll be able to take that course for a few dollars and learn everything there is to know about 10 things that are causing us to have a wealth of difficulties in our schools and why we can't allow it. And when someone tries to sell it to us, turn down the Kool Aid. You'll be far better off. And you know what? So will the kids, because they'll become successful adults and they will produce another generation of successful adults. Once again, my name is Jim Burns, and thank you for listening to Anti-Bullying 101.